The 2013 NFL season was the 94th season in the history of the National Football League. The season saw the Seattle Seahawks capture the first championship in the franchise's 38 years in the league with a convincing 43-8 victory over the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl XLVIII, the league's championship game. The Super Bowl was played at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey on Sunday, February 2, 2014. It was the first Super Bowl hosted by New Jersey and the first to be held outdoors in a cold weather environment. The Seahawks scored 12 seconds into the game and held the lead the rest of the way. Broncos quarterback Peyton Manning was named the regular season's most valuable player by the voters of the Associated Press for a record fifth time after compiling passing stats which included regular season records for passing yards and passing touchdowns. Manning also was named the Offensive Player of the Year for the second time in his career. Carolina Panthers linebacker Luke Kuechly earned Defensive Player of the Year honors. Scoring reached historic levels throughout the league in 2013. As a whole, the league set records for total points scored per game and the number of both touchdowns and field goals scored. The Broncos set a new standard for team scoring in the regular season with 606 points. In addition to the Broncos, 10 other teams each scored over 400 points, the greatest number of teams to surpass that benchmark in a single year. The regular season got underway on Thursday, September 5, 2013, with the Broncos hosting the defending Super Bowl XLVIII champion Baltimore Ravens in the annual kickoff game. The game presaged the Broncos' historic offensive production with a strong performance by Peyton Manning in which he tied a league record in throwing 7 touchdown passes and led the Broncos to a 49-27 win. The game was the start of a disappointing season for the Ravens in which they would finish out of the playoffs with an 8-8 record, thus ensuring that there would be no repeat Super Bowl winner for a tied record 9th straight season. The regular season wrapped up on Sunday night, December 29. The playoffs began with the wild card round which took place the first weekend of January 2014. The league's propensity for scoring did not abate in the postseason, as exemplified by the Indianapolis Colts' wild come-from-behind 45-44 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs opening game. The conference championship games featured the top-seeded teams in each conference, the Seahawks in the NFC and the Broncos in the American Football Conference, hosting the San Francisco 49ers and New England Patriots respectively. Both home teams prevailed to set up just the second Super Bowl matchup of number 1 seeds in the past 20 seasons. Player movement. The 2013 league year began at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 12, which marked the start of the league's free agency period. The per-team salary cap was set at $123 million. For the first time, the league instituted a negotiating period prior to the start of free agency, during which time agents representing prospective unrestricted free agent players were allowed to have contact with team representatives with the purpose of determining a player's market value and to begin contract negotiations. This period, which was referred to by some as the legal tampering period, began at midnight on March 9. Free agency a total of 524 players were eligible for some form of free agency. Among the high-profile players who changed teams via free agency were wide receivers Mike Wallace, Greg Jennings and Wes Welker. Defensive end Cliff Avril. Safety Dashon Goldson. Offensive tackle Jake Long. And running backs Steven Jackson and Reggie Bush. 8 players were assigned the non-exclusive franchise tag by their teams, which ensured that the team would receive compensation were the player to sign a contract with another team. These players were Brandon Albert, Jairus Byrd, Ryan Clady, Michael Johnson, Pat McAfee, Henry Melton, Anthony Spencer and Randy Starks. None of these players changed teams. Major trades. The following trades are notable as they involved Pro Bowl caliber players and/or draft picks in the first 3 rounds. Off-season, February 27. The Chiefs acquired quarterback Alex Smith from the 49ers for the Chiefs' second-round pick in the 2013 draft, 34th overall and a conditional pick in the 2014 draft. Smith had been the first overall selection of the 2005 NFL Draft, but had been supplanted as the 49ers' starting quarterback in mid-2012 by Colin Kaepernick. March 11, the wide receiver Percy Harvin was traded by the Vikings to the Seahawks for the Seahawks' 2013 first-round and seventh-round selections as well as the Seahawks' third-round pick in 2014. Harvin is an All-Pro and former Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he has also suffered a series of injuries throughout his career and had become disgruntled with the Vikings to the point that he asked the team to trade him. The Seahawks subsequently signed Harvin to a 6-year, $67 million contract extension which includes $25.5 million in guaranteed money. March 11, the 49ers acquired wide receiver Anquan Boldin from the Ravens for a sixth-round selection in the 2013 draft. Boldin, a three-time Pro Bowler and former Offensive Rookie of the Year, had refused to accept a pay cut that the Ravens had requested. April 21, cornerback Darrelle Revis was traded by the Jets to the Buccaneers. The Jets received the Bucs' first-round draft pick in 2013, the 13th overall selection and a conditional pick which would become the Bucs' fourth-round selection in 2014, the 104th overall pick. Revis, a three-time All-Pro, was widely considered to be among the league's top defensive players, but he was coming off a knee injury and the Jets did not feel they would be able to retain him after the 2013 season. The Bucs signed Revis to a 6-year, $96 million contract. In season. September 18, in a bit of a shocking mid-season move, the Browns traded running back Trent Richardson to the Colts in exchange for the Colts' first-round pick in the 2014 draft. The Browns had moved up in the previous year's draft to grab Richardson with the third overall selection and he was presumed to be a cornerstone of the team. October 2, offensive tackle Eugene Monroe was traded by the Jaguars to the Ravens in exchange for fourth and fifth-round selections in the 2014 draft. The Jaguars had selected Monroe 8 overall in the 2009 draft. Draft equals. The 2013 NFL Draft was held April 25, 27, 2013, in New York City. Prior to the draft, the NFL Scouting Combine, where draft-eligible players were evaluated by team personnel, was held in Indianapolis on February 20, 26. In the draft, the Kansas City Chiefs made Central Michigan University offensive tackle Eric Fisher the first overall selection. Preseason. Training camps for the 2013 season opened in late July. The Buccaneers camp was the first to open with rookies reporting on July 17. The Cowboys were the first to open camp to veteran players on July 20. All teams were in camp by July 27. Prior to the start of the regular season, each team played at least 4 preseason exhibition games. The preseason schedule got underway with the NFL Hall of Fame game on Sunday, August 4. The Hall of Fame game is a traditional part of the annual Pro Football Hall of Fame induction weekend celebrating new Hall of Fame members. It was played at Fawcett Stadium in Canton, Ohio, which is located adjacent to the Hall of Fame building. In the game, which was televised nationally on NBC, the Dallas Cowboys defeated the Miami Dolphins 24-20. The 2013 Hall of Fame class of Larry Allen, Chris Carter, Curly Culp, Jonathan Ogden, Bill Parcells, Dave Robinson and Warren Sapp was honored during the game. The 65-game preseason schedule concluded on Thursday, August 29. Regular season. The 2013 season featured 256 games played out over a 17-week schedule which began on the Thursday night following Labor Day. Each of the league's 32 teams played a 16-game schedule which included one bye week for each team between weeks 4 and 12. The slate featured 17 games on Monday night including a doubleheader in the season's opening week. There were also 17 games played on Thursday, including the National Football League kickoff game in prime time on September 4 and 3 games on Thanksgiving Day. The regular season wrapped up with a full slate of 16 games on Sunday, December 29, all of which were intra-divisional matchups. Scheduling formula. Under the NFL scheduling formula, each team played each of the other 3 teams in their own division twice. In addition, A team played against all 4 teams in one other division from each conference. The final 2 games on a team's schedule were against the 2 teams in the team's own conference in the divisions the team was not set to play who finished the previous season in the same rank in their division. The preset division pairings for 2013 were as follows. The 2013 regular season schedule was released on April 18, 2013. Regular season highlights. The 2013 regular season began on Thursday, September 5, with the NFL kickoff game in which the Denver Broncos hosted the Baltimore Ravens. The game was a rematch of a double overtime playoff game of the previous season. The game was broadcast on NBC. The Ravens, as the reigning Super Bowl champions, would normally have hosted the kickoff game, however, a scheduling conflict with their Major League Baseball counterparts, the Baltimore Orioles, forced the Ravens to start the season on the road. The Ravens became the first Super Bowl winner since 2003 to open their title defense on the road. In the kickoff game the Broncos avenged their playoff loss by defeating the Ravens 49-27 on the strength of a record-setting performance by quarterback Peyton Manning. Manning put on an amazing show completing 27 of 42 pass attempts for 462 yards and 7 touchdowns. Manning set or tied numerous league records in the game including most touchdown passes in a game and records for most career games with at least 6, 5 and 4 touchdown passes. The first of 2 games in the NFL International Series was played in the 4th week of the season on September 29. The Minnesota Vikings hosted the Pittsburgh Steelers at Wembley Stadium in London, England. Both teams entered the game winless on the season at 0-3. The Steelers-Vikings game kicked off at 6 p.m. BST. The Jacksonville Jaguars hosted the San Francisco 49ers at Wembley 4 weeks later, in the first of 4 annual London games for the Jaguars running through 2016. The 49ers-Jaguars game started at 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. This was the first season which included 2 London games. It was announced in October that the International Series would be expanded to include 3 games in 2014. The game that perhaps best exemplified the offensive explosion of the 2013 season was the Broncos' 51-48 victory over the Cowboys on October 6. This was the 4th highest scoring game in history in a season in which new records were set for overall as well as per game scoring. The teams combined for 1,039 yards in total offense. Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo passed for 506 yards, becoming only the 5th passer in league history to surpass 500 yards and throw 5 touchdown passes in a game. However, Romo threw an interception with the score tied in the game's final 2 minutes which led to a Matt Prater field goal which gave the Broncos the win as time ran out. The Chargers and Raiders played an unusual late-night game in the season's 5th week on October 6. The game, originally scheduled to start at 1:25 p.m. PDT, had to be moved to the evening to accommodate stadium schedules. Major League Baseball's Oakland Athletics, the Raiders co-tenants of Oco Coliseum, had hosted the second game of the 2013 American League Division Series the previous night and stadium crews needed nearly 24 hours to convert the stadium from a baseball to a football configuration. Oco Coliseum was only multi-purpose stadium which hosted both an NFL and an MLB team in 2013. Although the stadium conversion was complete by 3:30 p.m. local time, an 8:36 p.m. kickoff was necessary to avoid conflict with NBC's Sunday Night Football, where the 49ers hosted the Texans at Candlestick Park across the San Francisco Bay. The Chargers-Raiders game was the latest game played on the West Coast in league history and was broadcast nationwide on the NFL Network. The highlight of the season's 7th week was the return of Broncos quarterback Peyton Manning to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Manning had played for the Colts the first 14 years of his career before he was released by the team in March 2012, as he was coming off a serious neck injury which kept him out of the 2011 season. Manning was honored prior to the game in a 90-second video of the highlights of his years with the Colts. The Colts won the game 39-33 behind a 4-touchdown performance by Manning's replacement as the Colts' starting quarterback, Andrew Luck. It was the Broncos' first loss on the season and broke a string of 19 consecutive regular season wins. With the Broncos' loss to the Colts, the Chiefs became the league's last unbeaten team of 2013. They would run their record to 9-0 before losing to the Broncos 27-17 in the season's 11th week on November 17. The Chiefs had suffered a league-worst 2-14 season in 2012. On November 24, the Patriots hosted the Broncos on NBC Sunday Night Football. The game featured the 14th meeting in the careers of two of the league's best quarterbacks, Patriots quarterback Tom Brady and Peyton Manning of the Broncos. The game was hyped as Manning-Brady 14. The game lived up to the hype with Manning's Broncos building a 24-0 half-time lead as the Patriots were booed off their home field. In the second half Brady's Patriots scored 31 unanswered points. The Broncos scored a late touchdown to tie the game and send it into overtime where the Patriots ended the game on a field goal after recovering a muffed punt at the Broncos' 13-yard line. The comeback was the largest in Patriots history. The league's traditional slate of Thanksgiving Day games was played on Thursday, November 28. The Lions hosted the Packers in the early game at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, marking the Packers' 21st Thanksgiving game in Detroit. The Raiders visited the Cowboys in the late afternoon game at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. The evening game featured the defending Super Bowl champion Ravens hosting their AFC North rival Steelers at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Controversy erupted during the third quarter of the Thanksgiving night game between the Steelers and Ravens, as Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin found himself in the path of Ravens returner Jacoby Jones during a Ravens kickoff return. Tomlin was watching the play on the stadium's big screen and was thus facing away from the play itself while standing with at least 1 foot in the field of play. Jones broke the return to the side of the field and was running up the sideline on which Tomlin was standing. Tomlin stepped away from the field to avoid Jones as he approached, but did so only after he caused Jones to veer slightly toward the center of the field. Shortly thereafter, Jones was tackled from behind at the Steelers' 27-yard line. Some observers speculated that without Tomlin's interference Jones may have reached the end zone on the play. Tomlin was fined $100,000 by the league for the incident and the league held out the possibility that the Steelers might also be stripped of draft picks in the 2014 NFL Draft since Tomlin's actions affected a play on the field. After the season concluded it was announced that no further penalty beyond Tomlin's fine would be assessed. The Bills hosted the Falcons in Toronto, Canada on December 1. The game was played at Rogers Centre 1 week after the 101st Grey Cup ended the 2013 Canadian Football League season. On January 9, the Bills and Rogers Communications had announced a 5-year extension of the Bills-Toronto series. In contrast to the league-wide offensive explosion, the Seahawks fielded one of the best defenses in league history in 2013. Perhaps the best performance of the season for the Seahawks defense occurred in Week 15 as they shut out the Giants 23-0. In the game the Seahawks intercepted 5 passes and forced the Giants to punt on all 8 of their other possessions. The Giants' offense was held to just 181 yards for the game. Going into the final day of the season on December 29, 18 teams remained in contention for the 12 available playoff spots. All 16 of the Week 17 games were played on Sunday and 13 had playoff implications. All 4 division winners in the AFC had been determined, but all 4 NFC divisions were still up for grabs. In the season's final regular season game on Sunday night, the Eagles defeated the Cowboys 24-22 to capture the NFC East. This was the 3rd straight year that the Cowboys were eliminated from the playoffs with losses in their final game, all of which were against division rivals and all of which were played on Sunday night. Standings. Division conference Postseason. Wild Card Round. The Wild Card Round of the playoffs featured the 2 Wild Card playoff qualifiers from each conference being hosted by the 2 lowest-seeded divisional winners. The top 2 seeds in each conference the Seahawks, Panthers, Broncos and Patriots all had first-round byes. The games were played January 4, Euro 5, 2014. The weekend's first game on Saturday featured the Colts staging the second biggest comeback in playoff history to defeat the Chiefs by a score of 45-44. The 28-point second-half deficit the Colts overcame is exceeded only by the Bills-Oilers playoff game from January 1993, which has become known simply as the comeback. It was the first time in any NFL game that a team won in regulation play after having trailed by as many as 28 points. The game was also the highest-scoring postseason game to have been decided by a one-point margin, as well as the first game in league history to finish with a 45-44 result. The Colts and Chiefs combined to gain 1,049 total yards, which established a new single-game postseason record, breaking the record of 1,038 yards that was set by the Bills-Dolphins first-round game on December 30, 1995, and matched in a Saints-Lions first-round matchup on January 7, 2012. The loss was the Chiefs' eighth straight in the playoffs, which broke an NFL record for consecutive playoff losses the franchise had previously shared with the Lions. The Saints beat the Eagles 26-24 in the Saturday night game. It was the Saints' first ever road playoff victory. The Saints built an early 20-7 lead before the Eagles bounced back to take a 24-23 lead with less than 5 minutes remaining in the game. However, the Saints worked their way down the field while also working the clock on the game's final drive before Shane Graham kicked the game-winning field goal from 32 yards out as time expired. The early game on Sunday was the only game of the weekend not decided by 3 or fewer points, with the Chargers defeating the Bengals 27-10. Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton committed 3 second-half turnovers, which led to the Chargers scoring 20 unanswered points to overcome a 7-10 half-time deficit. The Bengals loss marks a league record third straight year in which the team has lost its playoff opener, and extended the Bengals' streak of playoff futility to 23 seasons. Every other current NFL team has won a playoff game since the Bengals' last playoff victory in January 1991. In the late afternoon game on Sunday, the 49ers defeated the Packers on a brutally cold day at Lambeau Field. The temperature at game time was just 5 Fahrenheit with a wind chill of 10 Fahrenheit. Quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who eschewed sleeves and gloves despite the chilly conditions, passed for 227 yards and rushed for 98 more to lead the 49ers to victory in a back-and-forth game. Phil Dawson kicked the winning field goal as time expired. This was the second straight year that the Packers' season had both started and ended with losses to the 49ers. Divisional Round. The Divisional Round games were played on January 11, Euro 12. 2014, and 3 of the 4 were rematches of regular season games. Only the Patriots and Colts had not met in 2013. In the early game on Saturday, the Seahawks defeated the Saints 23-15. The Seahawks held a 16-0 lead at halftime, but the Saints came back in the second half to make the game interesting. The Seahawks were able to hold on after a late Saints comeback effort, including an onside kick recovery, fell short. The Seahawks offense centered around a 28-carry, 140-yard rushing effort from Marshawn Lynch, who also scored on a 31-yard run in the fourth quarter. Patriots running back LeGarrette Blount and the Patriots defense were the stars of the Patriots' 43-22 victory over the Colts in the Saturday night game. Blount rushed for 166 yards and a franchise record 4 touchdowns, while Colts quarterback Andrew Luck was intercepted 4 times. Patriots quarterback Tom Brady broke a league record for most playoff games for a starting quarterback with 25 and extended his own record of 18 career playoff wins. The victory allowed the Patriots to reach the AFC Championship game for the 3rd straight year, as well as the 8th time with Brady and head coach Bill Belichick. Belichick moved into a second-place tie with Don Shula on the all-time postseason head coaching wins list, 1 victory behind Tom Landry. The 49ers defeated the Panthers by a score of 23-10 in the early Sunday game. The 49ers defense twice stopped the Panthers 1 yard short of the end zone and also recorded 2 interceptions and 5 quarterback sacks. 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick threw for 1 touchdown and ran for another in the game. The win put the 49ers into their third straight and 15th overall conference championship game, matching the Pittsburgh Steelers for most conference championship appearances. Jim Harbaugh became the first head coach in NFL history to take his team to the conference championship game in each of his first 3 seasons. In the final game of the divisional round, the Broncos beat the Chargers 24-17. It was only the 4th time in the season to date that the Broncos had been held to fewer than 30 points, but the Chargers' offense could not capitalize. The Broncos held a 17-0 lead in the 4th quarter before the Chargers launched a comeback that was too little and too late. The win put the Broncos into the AFC Championship game for the first time since the 2005 season. Conference Championships. The Conference Championships took place on Sunday, January 19, 2014. The early game featured the Broncos hosting the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. The game was referred to by many as Manning-Brady 15 as it was the 15th meeting of the 2 starting quarterbacks, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. The Broncos defeated the Brady and the Patriots 26-16 behind a 400-yard passing performance by Manning. Manning led the Broncos on 2 long touchdown drives which each used over 7 minutes of game time and were the 2 longest drives in terms of game time of the Broncos season. This was Manning's 3rd career postseason game with 400 or more yards passing, equaling Drew Brees for the most such playoff games in league history. Broncos head coach John Fox, who previously led the Carolina Panthers to Super Bowl XLVIII in 2004, became the 6th head coach in NFL history to take 2 different franchises to the Super Bowl. The NFC Championship game had the Seahawks hosting the 49ers in the late game. The Seahawks defense forced 3 turnovers in the 4th quarter which proved to be the difference in the game. The last of these was a pass intended for Michael Crabtree in the end zone which was intercepted by Seahawks linebacker Malcolm Smith off a deflection by cornerback Richard Sherman with just 22 seconds remaining in the 4th quarter. The interception preserved a 23-17 Seahawks victory. In an on-field interview immediately after the game with Fox sideline reporter Erin Andrews, Sherman famously directed a rant at Crabtree whom Sherman called a sorry receiver. Super Bowl XLVIII Super Bowl XLVIII featured the top-seeded team from each conference for just the 2nd time in 20 years. The Broncos possessed the league's best defense while the Seahawks had the league's top defense. The game was played on February 2, 2014 at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, just outside of New York City and was televised in the U.S. by Fox with kickoff at 6:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This was the first ever Super Bowl to be staged outdoors in a cold weather environment although the temperature was a mild 49 degrees at kickoff. The game started disastrously for the Broncos who, despite losing the coin toss, received the opening kickoff. On the game's first play from scrimmage from the Broncos' 14-yard line, Broncos center Manny Ramirez sent a shotgun snap over the head of quarterback Peyton Manning. The ball traveled into the end zone where it was covered by Broncos running back Knowshon Moreno who was touched down for a safety with just 12 seconds of game time elapsed. This was the quickest score ever in the Super Bowl. The Seahawks did not relinquish the lead in a 43-8 victory. This was the Seahawks' first ever league championship since entering the NFL in 1976. Seahawks linebacker Malcolm Smith, who scored on a 69-yard interception return, a fumble recovery and tallied 10 tackles, was named the game's most valuable player. This was the 5th Super Bowl loss for the Broncos, the most for any franchise. Even in defeat, though, Peyton Manning's record-breaking year continued. He set a record for most passes completed in a Super Bowl with 34. He also moved ahead of Tom Brady into first place on the career playoff passing yardage list with 6,589 yards. In addition, Broncos wide receiver Demaryius Thomas caught 13 passes to set a single-game Super Bowl record. Playoffs bracket equals Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl is the league's all-star game. The league had raised doubts about the future of the exhibition due to concerns over the game's competitiveness in recent years, but on March 20, it was announced that the 2014 Pro Bowl would indeed take place, receiving a one-year reprieve. As in recent years, the game was held the week before the Super Bowl at Aloha Stadium in Honolulu, Hawaii. It was played on Sunday, January 26, and broadcast in the U.S. on NBC. The format for the game was considerably altered in an effort to improve competitiveness. The biggest changes included an unconferenced format in which players would be selected regardless of the conference in which their team competes, a draft format to select the teams, and various tweaks to increase the excitement of the game itself. Deion Sanders and Jerry Rice served as the non-playing captains for the two competing squads. Notable events. Some NFL-related events that made headlines throughout 2013 include: Harris Poll tabs professional football as America's favorite sport. A nationwide poll conducted by Harris Interactive in December 2013 concluded that pro football is the favorite sport of Americans. Of the respondents asked the question, if you had to choose, which one of these sports would you say is your favorite? 35% chose pro football. That is up by 1 percentage point over the results of the previous year. Football has taken the top spot in the annual poll each year since it was first conducted in 1985. Baseball finished second, with 14% naming it as their favorite, followed by college football at 11%. Aaron Hernandez charged with murder. In August, former Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez was charged with the murder of Odin Lloyd. Hernandez was released by the Patriots following his arrest in the murder investigation in June. In an effort to further distance themselves from the troubled Hernandez, the Patriots offered fans an opportunity to trade in Hernandez jerseys for another jersey of comparable value. Hernandez would be convicted of the murder charge and sentenced to life imprisonment in April 2015. Riley Cooper incident. Eagles wide receiver Riley Cooper was caught on video using a racial slur during a music concert. After the video went viral during the team's training camp, Cooper was briefly sent away from the team to seek counseling. The Eagles also levied an undisclosed fine. Concussion litigation brought by former players. In August, just prior to the start of the season, a $765 million settlement proposal was announced in a class action lawsuit brought against the league by former players who contended that the league concealed a link between head injuries sustained by players and traumatic brain injury which may only become apparent later in life. The judge in the case later rejected the settlement on the grounds that the amount may not be large enough to cover the needs of all the plaintiffs. Buccaneers released quarterback Josh Freeman in mid-season. In October, the Buccaneers released quarterback Josh Freeman after trying unsuccessfully to trade him. Freeman had been considered one of the league's best young quarterbacks after leading the Bucs to a 10-6 record in 2010, but he clashed with head coach Greg Iano and was benched earlier in the year. Despite being just 25 years old, Freeman held franchise records for touchdowns and completions and was second in passing yardage. It had come out earlier in the week that Freeman had been in the league's substance abuse program. Freeman described his participation as voluntary and a result of prescription drugs he was taking to treat ADHD. Shortly after his release, Freeman was signed by the Vikings. Freeman started for the Vikings in Week 7, but he posted a passer rating of just 40.6 in that game and did not play another down during the season. He was inactive for 9 of the Vikings' final 10 games. Tampa Bay MRSA outbreak. 3 Buccaneers players kicker Lawrence Tynes, guard Carl Nix and cornerback Jonathan Banks were diagnosed with methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infections during the season. The potentially deadly strain of staph had been encountered by other NFL teams including the Washington Redskins, St. Louis Rams and Cleveland Browns in previous seasons. After the third infection was confirmed, there was brief discussion as to whether the Bucs' Week 6 home game against the Eagles would be played, but the decision was made to continue with a scheduled game. The Falcons even took the step of bringing in a hazardous materials crew to disinfect the visitors' locker room after the Bucs visited Atlanta in Week 7. Dolphins bullying scandal. Dolphins offensive lineman Richie Incognito was suspended by the team in November after allegations surfaced that he bullied fellow lineman Jonathan Martin, who left the team earlier in the season due to the impact of Incognito's actions. The league's official investigation into the matter concluded that Martin and other Dolphins employees had been subjected to a pattern of harassment at the hands of Incognito as well as fellow linemen John Jerry and Mike Pouncey. The 144-page report, written by league-appointed investigator Ted Wells, called the situation a classic case of bullying. The report also implicated Dolphins offensive line coach Jim Turner in some of the abuse. Turner was fired by the team shortly after the report's release. Redskins shut down quarterback Robert Griffin III for season's final 3 games. Redskins head coach Mike Shanahan made a decision to bench the team's franchise quarterback, Robert Griffin III, for the team's final 3 games of the 2013 season. Griffin had undergone knee surgery after being injured the previous season, in which he was named NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year after being selected 2nd overall in the 2012 draft. Griffin was much less productive in his second season. Shanahan stated that the decision to start Kirk Cousins over Griffin was made to protect Griffin from sustaining another injury, although there was speculation that Shanahan was unhappy about Griffin's friendly relationship with team owner Daniel Snyder. Shanahan was fired after the season ended. Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson leads all players in licensed product sales. Russell Wilson, the second-year quarterback of the Super Bowl champion Seahawks, led all NFL players in terms of total licensed product sales made from March 2013 through February 2014. The top 6 players on the list were quarterbacks, including, in order, Peyton Manning, Colin Kaepernick, Robert Griffin III, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. The only non-quarterback in the top 10 was Wilson's Seahawks teammate, running back Marshawn Lynch. Deacon Jones' death. Legendary Hall of Fame defensive lineman Deacon Jones died in June. Shortly thereafter, the league honored Jones' legacy by creating the Deacon Jones Award to be given annually to the player who records the most quarterback sacks. Colts linebacker Robert Mathis was the inaugural winner of the honor. Bud Adams' death. Tennessee Titans owner Kenneth S. Bud Adams died in October. He was the only owner the franchise, which began in 1960 as the Houston Oilers in the AFL, has ever had. Adams was a second-generation oil tycoon who made his home in Houston, Texas. The team was inherited in equal parts by the families of Adams' 3 children, with Adams' son-in-law Tommy Smith succeeding Adams as the president and CEO of the franchise. Other 2013 deaths, aside from those mentioned above, the following people associated with the NFL died in 2013. Hall of Fame members Jack Butler, Art Donovan, Mike McCormack and Clarence Ace Parker. Former coaches Bill Austin, Chuck Fairbanks, John Isaac, John Mazza, Jack Pardee, Jim Sweeney, Bum Phillips and Ray Wilsey. Former players Scott Adams, Tom Albany, Bill Albright, John Alderton, Jim Barton, Hezekiah Braxton, Don Brown, George Brown, Tom Brown, Ted Bergmeyer, Jim Kennedy, Rick Cassez, Jim Kazan, Frank Chamberlain, Todd Christensen, Ken Clark, Walt Clay, Ray Coates, Angelo Coyer, Frederick Cole, Dave Costa, Bobby Crispino, Billy Cross, Jack Davis, Art DiCarlo, Jack Del Bello, Bert DeLaven, Frank Dempsey, John Didion, Walt Dubzinski, Dick Duden, Ron Duncan, Jeff Durkota, Walt Easley, Alan Ellis, Dick Ivey, Joe Francis, Willie Frazier, Sonny Gandhi, Frank Gore, Ronnie Goodwin, Elsie Greenwood, Glenn Gregory, Earl Groves, Bob Heck, Robert Bob Hecker, Kerry Henley, Tom Higgins, Sr., Harlan Hill, John Holt, Thomas Howard, Jim Hudson, Ken Hutchison, Claudius James, Dave Jennings, Frederick Julian, Bob Carla, Dave Kokarek, Johnny Kovac, Chester Chet Lagod, Mike LaHood, Dave Leggett, Jimmy Lisane, Jeff Lewis, Tony Linhart, Bob Livingston, Tony Lorick, John McZuzak, Errol Mann, Lou Main, Frank Matsicki, Gino Mazzanti, Darius McCord, John McCormick, Greg McCrary, David McMillan, Bronzel Miller, Burt Milling, Norm Mosley, Chuck Muncie, Hamilton Nichols, Rick Norton, Bob Oliver, Paul Oliver, Francis Pay, Tom Pennington, Gordon Polofsky, Jim Powers, Ben Pucci, John Reger, Ernie Richardson, Jerry Robinson, Reggie Rogers, Curtis Rouse, Marion Rushing, Tino Sabuco. George Sames, George Sauer, Jr., Harry School, Pat Shear, Ed Shedlisky, Brian Sisley, Charles Smith, Harry Smith, Ron Smith, John Sokolowski, Brian Stoltenberg, Roy Stewart, Pat Summerall, Walt Sweeney, Joe Tereshinski, Sr., Bobby Thomason, Frank Tripucka, Bill Troop, Val Joe Walker, Art Weiner, Wilford White, John Wilbur, John F. Wiley, Mike Williams, Sam Williams, Will Wynn, Bob Yates, Dick Elvington and Glenn Young. Former owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jerry Willman. Former minority owner of the San Francisco 49ers, Lou Spadia. Former team scout Bud Asher. And former officials Bob Beeks and Jerry Seaman. Rule changes. The following rule changes were approved at the NFL owners' meeting on March 20, 2013. The no-challenge rule adopted prior to the 2012 season was modified to eliminate the automatic no-review penalty when a coach challenges a play that is subject to automatic review by the replay booth. This change was prompted after last season's Thanksgiving Day game when Detroit Lions head coach Jim Schwartz threw a challenge flag on a play where replay clearly showed Houston Texans running back Justin Forsett's knee touched the ground, but was able to get up and score a touchdown. Due to the way the rule was written at the time, the penalty for the errant challenge prevented the play from being reviewed. Under the revised rule, teams will be charged a timeout when a coach throws a challenge flag on a booth-reviewable play, but the play will still be reviewed if the replay booth believes a review is necessary. This change has been referred to as the Jim Schwartz rule, making it a fumble when a player loses possession of the football while in the act of trying to bring it back to his body. This abolishes the so-called tuck rule, which was adopted prior to the 1999 season. Under the revised rule, it will be ruled a fumble when a quarterback loses possession of the ball after a pump fake while bringing the ball back to his body. Tight ends and H-backs will now be permitted to wear uniform numbers 40 to 49 as well as 80 to 89. Previously the two positions were treated separately, with tight ends allowed to wear only 80 to 89 and H-backs limited to wearing 40 to 49. Peel-back blocks will now result in 15-yard personal foul penalties anywhere on the field. Previously, these type of blocks were permitted within the tackle box. On field goal and extra point attempts, long snappers will now be considered defenseless players. In addition, defensive players are prohibited from blocking low at the snap of a scrimmage kick. For field goal and extra point attempts, the defensive team can have no more than 6 players on either side of the ball at the snap, and players cannot push teammates into blockers. Any player at least 3 yards downfield or outside of the tackle box, who leads with his helmet on a hit, will be penalized 15 yards for unnecessary roughness. If both offensive and defensive players lead with helmets on the same play, both will be penalized. Player safety changes. Upon recommendation by the league's head, neck and spine safety committee, the NFL notified teams in August that clubs would no longer be allowed to use alternate helmets for throwback uniforms or third jerseys as they had been allowed to do since throwbacks were introduced in 1994. Once players start the season with properly fitted helmets that they are comfortable wearing, the league's head, neck, and spine committee recommended that players should not switch helmets in mid-season, especially to ones that have not been broken in yet. To comply with these new rules, teams will be allowed to change or remove the decals on their regular helmets for such uniforms. All players were required to wear thigh and knee pads. It was previously mandatory to wear these pads from 1979 through 1994. U.S. television coverage. This was the 8th and final year of the current TV contracts with CBS, Fox, NBC, and ESPN before the new 9-year contracts begin in 2014. CBS will continue to carry the AFC package. Fox will continue to carry the NFC package. NBC will continue to carry Sunday Night Football, the kickoff game, and the primetime Thanksgiving game. And ESPN will continue to air 17 Monday night games in 16 weeks from September 9 through December 23. 2013 marks the 20th season of Fox televising NFL games. Records and milestones. The 2013 season saw a number of league records set, most notably, a record 11,985 points were scored during the season, with games averaging 46.8 points, the highest average in NFL history. A total of 1,338 total touchdowns were scored, surpassing the league-wide record of 1,297, which occurred last season. A record 863 field goals were made this year, surpassing the record set last year with 852. Also, kickers converted a record 86.5% of their field goal attempts, breaking the record of 84.5% set during the 2008 season. With 5,477 passing yards, Peyton Manning broke Drew Brees' 2011 record for passing yards in a season by a single yard. Peyton Manning also finished with the season record 55 touchdown passes, surpassing the mark of 50 set by Tom Brady in 2007. In scoring 606 points during the regular season, the Denver Broncos surpassed the NFL record for most points and became the first team to eclipse the 600-point threshold. The Broncos outscored the next highest scoring team by 161 points, or more than 10 points per game. Punter Johnny Hekker of the St. Louis Rams set a single-season record with an average of 44.2 net yards per punt, besting the mark of 44.0 yards set by Andy Lee in 2011. Head coach front office changes. Head coach off-season. In season, the following head coaches were replaced in season. Front office off-season. Awards and statistics. Individual season awards All-Pro team . The following players were named First Team All-Pro by the Associated Press. Players of the Week month . The following were named the top performers during the 2013 season. Team statistical leaders . Offense, most points scored, Denver, 606 points, fewest points scored, Jacksonville, 247 points, most total offense, Denver, 7,317 yards, least total offense, Tampa Bay, 4,432 yards, most total passing, Denver, 5,444 yards, least total passing, Tampa Bay, 2,820 yards, most rushing, Philadelphia, 2,566 yards, least rushing, Atlanta, 1,247 yards, defense, fewest points allowed, Seattle, 231 points, most points allowed. Minnesota, 480, fewest total yards allowed, Seattle, 4,378 yards, most total yards allowed, Dallas, 6,645 yards, fewest passing yards allowed, Seattle, 2,752, most passing yards allowed, Philadelphia, 4,636 yards, fewest rushing yards allowed, Arizona, 1,351 yards, most rushing yards allowed, Chicago, 2,583 yards. Attendance. Notes: A. Played one home game in Toronto, Canada. B. Played one home game in London, England. Stadium changes . 2013 marked the final season in which the Minnesota Vikings played their home games at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, as the team will move temporarily to TCF Bank Stadium while their U.S. Bank Stadium is built at the same site as the Metrodome. The Vikings will play the 2014 and 2015 seasons at TCF Bank Stadium and open their new stadium for the 2016 season. The Vikings had called the Metrodome home since it opened in 1982. This was also the final season in which the San Francisco 49ers played their home games at Candlestick Park, as the team will move into the newly built Levi's Stadium located in Santa Clara, California, for 2014. The 49ers had played in Candlestick since 1971 and the stadium has hosted Monday Night Football 36 times, including the stadium's farewell game on December 23. No other facility had as many Monday Night Football appearances. With the departure of the 49ers, Candlestick Park will be left without any permanent tenants. On February 3, 2013, plans to demolish Candlestick Park were announced and might take place after the final 2013 49ers game. Two stadiums received new naming rights, In January 2013, Cleveland Browns Stadium was renamed First Energy Stadium. The First Energy Corporation, an energy company based in Akron, Ohio, agreed to pay the Cleveland Browns $6 million per year for 17 years to have its name on the team's stadium. In July 2013, Cowboys Stadium was rebranded as AT&T Stadium, though terms of the naming rights deal remain undisclosed. Uniforms. Several teams made changes to their uniforms or logos prior to the 2013 season. The Jacksonville Jaguars revised their logo and unveiled a new uniform design. The new design includes all black home uniforms, white road jerseys and a teal alternate jersey. The new jerseys include claw marks on the shoulders and a Jags patch over the heart. The new helmet design features a paint scheme that fades from matte black in the front to gold in the back. The Miami Dolphins updated their logo and unveiled redesigned uniforms. The new logo features a more streamlined dolphin which loses the football helmet and the fierce facial expression. The new uniforms keep the same basic color palette, but there is less use of orange. The face mask color on the team's new helmets has been changed from aqua to white. The Minnesota Vikings introduced a slightly tweaked Norseman logo and unveiled new uniforms. The colors are barely changed, with a new font for the uniform numbers and asymmetrical stripes on the pants. The new helmets feature matte purple paint with glossy logos and black face masks. The San Diego Chargers introduced some relatively minor uniform alterations. The most noticeable change is the switch to self-color collars from the previous contrasting color neck roll collar design. There were also some changes to the colors used on the nameplates as well as some changes to the socks. The pants and helmets remain unchanged. The New York Giants introduced a new alternate uniform consisting of new white pants which may be worn with the team's existing blue jerseys in place of the usual gray pants. The team wore this new alternate uniform on November 10 against the Oakland Raiders and November 24 against the Dallas Cowboys. In honor of the 15th anniversary of the team's relocation to Nashville, the Tennessee Titans wore their alternate navy blue jerseys in 2 home games. This marked the first time since 2008 that the Titans wore the navy blue jerseys which were their primary home jerseys in their early Tennessee seasons before they switched to their current light blue jerseys. The Titans also added a patch commemorating the 15th season in Tennessee to their jerseys. The Indianapolis Colts added a jersey patch which celebrates the team's 30th season in Indianapolis. Due to a new recommendation that a player should use the same helmet for all games, several teams were forced to make changes in their plans to use alternate and throwback jerseys, including the following. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers shelved their creamsicle throwback uniforms completely. The Patriots similarly chose not to wear their throwback uniforms at all in 2013. The Washington Redskins wore their current helmets along with their throwback uniforms which feature a different shade of burgundy. The Green Bay Packers also wore their current helmets with their throwback uniforms, but with the stripes and logo decals removed. The Dallas Cowboys decided to wear their blue away jerseys at their Thanksgiving Day home game, something they have not done since the 1960s. Traditionally the team has worn their throwback jerseys for the Thanksgiving game. References. Further reading: Zimmer, John. Lee, Brandon. Mariani, Matt. Official 2014 National Football League Record and Fact Book. Archived from the original on February 4, 2015.